I'm Jura, the time traveler, and this is my lifestyle time travel blog. And today we are talking about the oldest mummies in the world. No, Egyptians' mummies are not the oldest ones, but let's see first what is mummy. Mummies are animal or human remains that have preserved soft tissue or some organs, and that can be achieved intentionally or by accident. Accidentally, that can be achieved when body is left in some specific conditions, like no air, extremely dry climate, or extremely cold conditions. And intentionally, mummification can be achieved in different ways. Let's see what is the earliest mummification. Officially, the title of oldest mummies belongs to Chinchorro culture in Chile. But at the end of this video, we'll see if they have competition. Chinchorro is the culture of hunter-gatherers who lived at the coast of Chile in the Atacama desert, so that is northern part of Chile. And 90% of their diet was seafood. First mummies in this culture were actually unintentional natural mummies. So around 300 mummies have been found up until now, and some 29% belonged to these naturally preserved mummies. So the process of natural mummification. So the oldest mummy comes from around 7,000 years BC, and it was unintentionally preserved mummy. And because the climate of the Atacama desert is convenient for this natural mummification, we have a lot of them that are still preserved. Additionally, this soil is full of nitrates, which is convenient for organ preservation. So we have extreme heat and dryness, and we have soil that is full of salt. Salts hold the bacterial growth, and this extreme dryness and heat help in desiccation of bodily fluids so that they're extracted from the body. So soft tissues dry before they could decay, and that is how we get mummies. And even these naturally preserved mummies are wrapped in reeds and have gray goods. And they have been found all around Chinchorro culture from 7000 BC to 1300 BC. The first artificial mummies are the black mummies, and they come from 5000 years BC, also from Chinchorro culture. This process was a bit complicated, and it is not for the faint of heart. So they took apart the body of the deceased, then they treated it and reassembled it. So the head, legs and arms were detached from the body. Sometimes the skin was as well. The body was heat dried, and flesh and tissue were removed. They were scraped from the bones with stone tools. Then they put the body back together, covered it with ash paste, and they filled the cavities with grasses, with animal hair, with ash and with soil. Then this paste was used to model the face of the deceased so that it could look naturally. Then they put a wig of short human hair. The skin was refitted to the body, and sometimes the skin of sea lions was used. And in the end, the whole body was painted in black. So that is why they are called black mummies. And one thing that was common for all the mummies was that they had clay masks. This mummification style was used until 3000 years BC. Now we're moving to more discreet technique, which is the red mummies. And they start appearing around 2500 years BC, and this technique was used until 2000 years BC. So now they were not disassembling the body, but they made many incisions in the trunk and shoulder of the deceased to remove internal organs and dry the body cavity. Then the head was removed so that they could remove the brain. Then the skin was applied back to this head and covered with a clay mask. Instead of organs, they filled the body with reeds and animal hair. And now longer wig was used also from human hair. And the wig was held in place by a clay hat that was usually black. And the face mask was also usually black, but the rest of the body was painted in red ochre. So that is why they're called red mummies. And now we have mud-coat mummies, and this technique was practiced from 3000 BC until 1300 BC. And this technique was a bit more elegant. So now they did not remove any organ or bodily fluids or anything, they just covered the body with a thick coat of clay. And now we have bandage technique, and it was not a widespread technique. We only have 3 infants that were treated this way. So it is a combination of black and red mummies. The body was treated like the one of the black mummy and the head like the red mummy. And the body was then wrapped in animal or human skins. The head was painted in black and the rest of the body with red ochre. And now we are moving to the contenders for the first place. Recent studies have revisited the documentation and old photographs from the excavations in Portugal done during the 1960s. And that was for the Mesolithic in the Sado Valley. Of course, these were the populations of hunter-gatherers. And they have focused on more than a dozen graves of Mesolithic hunter-gatherers that can be dated from 8150 to 7000 years ago. And we have 2 burials from 2 sites that are pretty interesting. The first comes from the site of Arapouco in Portugal, where this individual in an extremely flexed position was found. But that is not the only interesting thing about this burial. Also, the bones, especially the bones of hands and toes, were not moved beyond their initial position, which is very hard to achieve if the body was preserved without mummification. And this hyperflexation is beyond the range of movement of fully fleshed body. The decomposition of body in situ is followed by some activities such as bloating. Then, when this tissue decomposes, we are left with significant empty spaces. And because of that, bones usually move, especially the phalanges in hands and feet. And that is why this lack of movement of bones in this burial is really suspicious for natural full body burial. So we have an extremely flexed body, bones that have not been moved, and we do not have any space between them. So that is why the archaeologists presumed that this body was mummified. But not only this body, also one burial from Poças de S. Bento. And this implies that at least a part of the community was involved in this mummification process and care for these individuals after their death. So now we are talking about social organization, about rituals, funerary practices, and everything that is involved in the potential afterlife of these people. Of course, we do not have enough information to talk about that, but let's talk about how these individuals could have been mummified. So ethnographic studies give us some insight into traditional practices of different populations. So maybe we can draw some inspiration from traditional mummifying practices. They could have positioned body on top of some raised platforms so that liquids can drain. They could have had a hut or a roof to protect the body from rain. They also had to wrap this body in some textiles to preserve this position. They also could have put this body next to a fire so that the draining would be accelerated and the smoke would help in repelling insects. They also could have rubbed this body with ointments or plant extracts to get rid of insects and bacteria. And this process could have lasted from several days to several months. And in that period of time, the cloth that this body was wrapped into had to be tightened from time to time so that it would compress. And these two bodies were probably mummified because the Mediterranean climate would affect these bodies immediately. They would start decomposing within a day. If these two bodies of these Mesolithic hunter-gatherers from Portugal were actually mummified, they would be the oldest mummies ever, knocking Chinchorro mummies from the throne. So we are waiting for new excavations and for new results to see if these two bodies actually belonged to mummies. Thank you for watching this video, and if you want more videos about mummies, write down in comments. And you know what to do: like, subscribe, share, send to all, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!